Hey guys, it's Chris from Highline Guitars. I'm getting ready to do the final assembly on my Highline Bravo Snake guitar. And before I can actually start to bolt in controls and add on all the hardware, I am shielding the control cavity. So that is the subject of this week's quick tip, my method and what I use for shielding. Now, in truth, I know that a lot of folks like to use shielding paint, and to be honest with you, I'm not really a big fan of shielding paint. I don't think it works as well, and I don't think it's worth the cost. Also, I don't think it's any easier to apply shielding paint than it is just to put foil, adhesive back foil, into the control cavity. And there's really two kinds of shielding foil that you can use, and copper is one of them, and the other is aluminum foil. I really like to use aluminum foil because I can get this stuff really cheap at my local hardware store in the HVAC section. And it works just as well as copper foil. There's really no difference at all in its ability to shield the electronics from interference. So the only reason I keep copper around is because I still get the odd customer who will say, please shield mine with foil or with copper foil. I think it works better. And it doesn't. It works exactly the same. I know one of the questions people will ask is, does this aluminum foil shielding tape have conductive adhesive? And I don't know. Is there even such a thing as conductive adhesive, or is adhesive just conductive? I don't know. At any rate, a way to test it is to cut two pieces, stick it down on wood so that one piece is partially overlapping the other, and then check it with a multimeter to see if there's continuity. And if there is, then you're good to go. And with this stuff, it's Nashua tape products, and I think I picked this up at Home Depot. I have continuity everywhere, so it's not an issue. Now, let me bring you in a little bit closer and I'll show you the inside of this cavity and how I'm foiling it. Okay, so as you can see here, I have completely lined the inside of this control cavity with the aluminum foil tape. And to prove that it is conductive, just is a matter of making sure I can get a signal anywhere I touch the probes inside the cavity. And that means it's essentially one homogeneous shield, even though it's made from multiple pieces. And the back of the cover is also shielded, and I've got just a slight lip running around the perimeter here, and that's so that this grounded shield will come into contact with the cavity cover's ground shield and will ground it, so that everything will be grounded, and it's all completely surrounded in a grounded cavity. Now, don't think of it as having to be watertight or airtight or anything like that around here. You just want to make sure that since this is going to be grounded, that it does at some point around the perimeter come into contact with the cover so as to transfer that grounding to the back so that everything is completely enclosed. Now, the way in which this shielding is grounded is obviously through your jack. You plug your amp into the wall with a grounded plug, and assuming you have a good ground at the wall outlet, that ground is transferred through the amp, through the cable, into the jack, and very likely you'll have a wire running from the ground lug on your jack to soldered to the back of one of your control pots. And because the pot is it's a metal casing, any part of that metal casing that comes into contact with this aluminum foil will ground the shielding. So that's really all you have to do to ensure that you've got a ground. And again, you can test it with a multimeter just to make sure that your ground is legitimate, but that shouldn't be an issue, since all pots are made out of metal. Now, one final note on shielding cavities. Whenever I talk about shielding, I always get the question, do I shield my pickup cavities? And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Since I build most of my guitars with humbuckers, I typically won't bother shielding the cavities because the back of my humbuckers is already shielded. So it really doesn't gain much to do that. And in truth, if your pickups are uncovered, those pole pieces act like magnets for 60 cycle hum interference. So unless you've got them completely covered in a grounded cover, that it's not going to really gain you much to shield the insides of these cavities. If I'm using single coils, however, I will, because I do find that when I shield a single coil cavity and make sure that each of the cavities is connected and then connected to ground so that the shielding is grounded, it does make a difference. It may not be as effective as if you were to completely encase the pickup in a grounded shield, but it does seem to reduce some of that hum a little bit. So in the cases of a single coil or a P90, yes, I'll shield those cavities, but with humbuckers, I typically won't bother. If I really wanted my pickups to be shielded, I would just put a nickel silver cover that has no holes, solder it to the back of the base, which is grounded, and then I'd have a fully encased and shielded pickup. So that's the only time I would do that, but it's never really been that big of a deal. And I've also seen guys who will shield tremolo cavities. Why? There's nothing in there that needs to be shielded. So don't waste your time and don't waste the foil. Unless you've got some kind of weird electronic scenario where there's controls inside your tremolo cavity, there's no point to it. Your tremolo isn't electric, neither are the springs, so don't bother with it. Well, that's all the time I have for this week's quick tips. And if you have any comments or questions, post them down below and I'll be sure to try and answer them for you, or maybe someone else in the community will answer for you. And in the meantime, take care and I will see you soon.